Our first lecture is titled Coulomb's Law in the course of electromagnetic theory. So first I will give you idea about Coulomb's law, and then we will discuss each of the terms of Coulomb's law one by one. So here in physical scenario in which Coulomb's law is applied, you are having two charges. We call them as point charges. Okay, so we assume that the separation between the charges is very large compared to the size of the charge. Okay, so we label these charges as Q with a subscript of 1 and second charge with a subscript of 2, and the goal is what is called as what is the force of charge Q1 that exert on charge Q2. That is, we have to find out what is F21, which is labeled as F2 over here. So F21 is what? The force of object 1 on object 2. Similarly, if you want to find out the force of object 2 on object 1, it is given by F12, and both the forces are equivalent. Okay, over here you have seen that if both the charges are of same nature, the force is repulsive. Where if charges are of opposite nature, the force is attractive. Okay, so the question is, what is the charge? What is the force that second charge will experience because of presence of first charge? And the answer to this was shouted by many people, but the first published version of the law is given by French engineer Charles Coulomb, and his law states that in this modern notation that the force on second charge is equal to 1 by 4 epsilon naught q1 into q2 r square ar. So please note that this is the modern notation, vector notation that we are talking about, whereas Charles has given Coulomb's law in slightly different manner, but both of them are equivalent to this boxed equation. The law which is given by Charles is equivalent to this boxed equation. So what is the terms that are sitting here? Okay, we are having Q1, Q2. Q1 is your source charge, Q2 is your test charge on which we are testing our force, or we are trying to find out the force. Okay, r square is the separation between two charges. So you can see here that r is the separation between two charge Q1 and Q2. I'm not showing it properly over here. We assume that r is very large compared to the dimension of the charges. So these charges we are going to discuss. Okay, so before that, what is this AR? AR is your unit vector which is along the line which is joining the center of two charges. Okay, and the direction is from Q1 to Q2. So along this line, the unit vector is from direction Q1 to Q2, which we are labeling with AR. Okay, and this left hand side of the equation is the force on charge Q2, and r square will tell us this square of distance between charges. If I keep all the terms as constant, then the magnitude of force is inversely proportional to square of distance. So keep that in mind. So the first term on right hand side that we had upon which force depend is electrical charge. So first what we are going to see, what is electrical charge. An electrical charge is fundamental property of matter, just as mass. Okay, now when you talk about mass, Mass will only have one type, whereas charges comes in two flavor. It could be positive, it could be negative. Okay, and there are only two types of charges that one can have. Matter is made up of atom. Atom is made up of protons, electrons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons forming nucleus and electron revolving around our nucleus. So what is charged negatively? Electrons is charged negatively in atom, whereas protons are positively charged. Of course, for neutral atom, the amount of positive charge must be equal to amount of negative charge. Otherwise, they would not exist. So, how do you measure this charge? We measure charge in SI unit as coulombs. This is the same Coulomb who gave the force law between two charges, and we have honored him by measuring charges in terms of coulombs. So now I just told you that matter is made up of atoms are made up of electrons and nucleus, okay, and electrons are the smallest free charge that are available to us, and the magnitude of this charge is 1.602 into 10 to the power minus negative. Please note here that the order of the magnitude is very, very, very small, and the observed charge that you might measure should always be multiple of this electron. Okay, you can have charge equivalent to 10 times of E, or it can be minus 500 times of E, but you will always have an integral multiple of this charge E. So these are the free charges that are available with us, and this is the smallest such free charge. Just to give you an order of estimation that how many electrons will make 1 coulomb, or you can say how many of electrons are required to make 1 coulomb. So you can see that one electron charge, that is the smallest one, is equals to 1.602 into 10 to the power 19. So to make 1 coulomb you need to have 1 by E. So note that here I am only looking about magnitude, because electrons are particles, so we don't have to consider their number as negative. Okay, the charge on electrons is negative, but the electron itself is a number out there for us. Okay, so 1 by 1.602 into 10 to the power minus will turn out to be 6.25 into 10 to the power 18. This is a huge amount of electrons that is required just to make 1 coulombs of charge. So to put it in another perspective, if you collect a large charge during violet light stroke, you will able to collect only 10 or 20 coulombs. So now you can see that 1 coulomb of charge is really huge number, because it requires a huge number of electrons to make up 1 coulomb. Now in many situations we restrict ourselves to point charges. Okay, so remember what is point charge. Point charge is one whose dimension is so small compared to the distance that is involved. In this aspect, if you take an example, if we consider sun as a charged body and earth as a charged body, so one can looking at distance between the sun and earth. For the people on earth, the sun simply appear as point charge. Okay, such is a point charge. That this is something that you would have been familiar with in gravitational law also. For example, when you are calculating gravitation force between sun and earth, You do not think of distribution of mass on sun or distribution of mass on earth, but rather you think of them at first, I mean initially, with not great amount of error, these two as point charges, right? So point masses, point masses, so point masses are those in which they have mass, they have well defined specification, specific location, but they do not have any mass distribution. Okay, so this mass is the distribution as a point. In another word, they do not have any size or dimension of masses. Similarly, if you consider sun as charged body, earth as a charged body, for the distance that are involved, you think them as point charge. So any number that would take in number sorry so any matter that would take in consist of atom, or atom together forms molecule, so you can say that matter consists of molecules or atoms. Now if you see the distance between electrons and protons, so in terms of atomic scale it is very large, so you will consider them as point charge. So suppose they their so you have this well big nucleus here. Okay, an electron is sitting at considerably far distance, so that you can approximate the nucleus as point charge. Electrons and protons as you know is part of nucleus. Okay, so the distance between electron and nucleus is very large considerably, so you can approximate electron as point charge. Okay, now if for some reason these charges are distributed over line or a surface or a volume, if you want to study how the force are there on this line or surface or volume, you can go to one extreme, okay, and start looking at matter as a collection of atom and start applying Coulomb's law to the entire atom, right? So you apply that to intermolecular distance. So at fundamental level, because of discrete nature of atom or molecule, you might want to apply Coulomb's law individually, but remember that total of 10 to the power 18 electrons are making 1 coulomb of charge, which means if you want to sit and apply Coulomb's law, you will be applying Coulomb's law to 10 to the power 18 times just to make 1 coulomb of force, right? So these are located and these charges distributed across as in matter. And if you start applying Coulomb's law to individual atom, you will be dealing with enormous number of atoms, and this application would simply be meaningless, right? So this is the same situation as you encounter in fluid. For example, you will model water as continuous fluid, although you know that water is an ultimate level composed of molecules, and molecules are not coming as continuous unit, but they are discrete unit. There is molecule, there is another molecule, there is distance between those two molecules. However, because of large number of electrons or large number of molecules that are involved, right, large number of atoms that are involved, one can forget that discrete nature, and then they talk about a continuous distribution of charge. So just like water flow, charge flow, right, or charge is distributed on line or surface or volume. So these are called as charge distribution, and these distribution can come often in practice. So we would better be able to describe this distribution, and we have line charge in which the density of charges would be varying across its position. Okay, so over here, if I am just about a few plus sign, it do not really mean that there was only one plus, okay, or two plus or four plus signs. Remember that there are 10 to the power 18 electrons for 1 coulomb. Therefore, there are large number of electrons in each of this plus sign that is shown over here. But the important point is that I can take this line charge and say that how many charges are there per unit length. So that total length that I want to obtain can be obtained by looking at the distribution and integrating it over the entire line. So we get charge density, which is in line charge density, and given as charge per unit length. We measure this as coulombs per meter. Why coulombs per meter? Because charge are measured in coulombs and length is measured in meter. So SI unit of line charge density is coulombs per meter. Similarly, you might have charge distribution over surface. So just as p-n junction. So in that case, you will be talking about charge per unit area. Okay, and you have surface charge density. It is denoted by Greek rho with the subscript of S. So you have surface charge distribution and its SI unit is coulombs per meter square. You can have charge distributed in a region or in a space. So that form charge per unit volume. Sorry, over here it should be volume. Okay, so you have it in coulombs per meter cube. So how I obtain the full charge or total charge? The total charge obtained by approximating the integrals. The total charge on line can be obtained by integrating it over the line along with charges distributed. If you integrate the charge surface density over the surface, this becomes total charge, which is surface integral. You can do volume integral to find out the total charge that is contained inside any volume. So this is the actually more or less, this is one dimensional. Okay, this is two dimensional and this is three dimensional. But these integrals are differentiated by their subscript. L stands for linear integral, S stands for surface integral, V stands for volume integral. Sometimes we can also find them as triple integral. Yes, and sign to indicate clearly that this is volume integral. Okay, let me just give a brief example how do we calculate the total charge. So here it is p-n junction, something that you might have studied in your electronics course. A p-n junction is an essential component for making diode, MOSFET, or you can say transistor. And in a typical p-n junction you will have donors, okay, on one side and acceptor on another side. When they made contact with each other, charge from one type migrated to the charge on the another. type, leaving behind a space region. So this region is your space charge region layer. Okay, so to the space charge layer, on the left hand side, which is n type, the charge density is coulombs per centimeter cube. Here q into nda, where q is same as E. Okay, so q into nd is your charge density, that is charge per unit volume in cubic centimeter cube. On n side, space charge region. Okay. Similarly, on p side, the charge density is q minus q na. Why this should be plus sign and this should be minus sign, something that you must be familiar with your electronics course, because charges move leaving behind in mobile ions, which are negatively charged here and positively charged here. So if you now ask what is the total charge on p side, then what is the total charge on n side? So you can do that by doing integration over volume. Okay, so this sign over here, it should be equal, and this is your minus sign. Okay, in this equation. So to calculate charges, total charge in volume of dimension is charge in volume of dimension of your volume is x p naught into 1 into 1. This is the dimension of volume, and you can do integration over volume. Before we do that, we want to tell you that this is one dimensional charge distribution, because we are assuming that p-n junction is uniform across y and x. So whatever the charge density that is there is varying along x direction. So the charge density varying along x direction, the integral becomes very simple. If you consider volume, which is defined as the dimension of x p naught 1 and 1, we just need to integrate over this region. Okay, so x and y integral do not really affect, they are just integral over 0 to 1, and they are constant integral that would come out. A charge density is also constant. This charge density is also constant. Therefore, it can be put out of integral, and you can see that the total charge on p side is given by minus q na x into p naught. Similarly, you can carry out integration to find out total charge on n side of this junction, and we will see that the total charge on side of n is q into nd x n naught. Okay, because of this charge conservation, the magnitude of charge on p side must be equal to charge on n side. Okay, so we will be talking about p-n junction a lot in later on. So let us come on another term. Another term, 1 by 4 epsilon naught r square. Okay, so here actually split this up into two terms. One is 1 by 4 epsilon naught and one is 1 by r square. Was a measure factor that was obtained experimentally. Okay. So after careful experiment using torsion balance, Coulomb's postulated that magnitude of force between two charges, that is F, is inversely proportional to distance square. Okay, so this force F between two charges varies with 1 by r square. Okay, so this torsion balance is given by Charles Coulomb itself. He only discovered, and then he find out that the magnitude of force is inversely proportional to 1 by r square. This is called inverse square law. Okay, very similar to gravitational law. Unlike gravitational force law, the force is attractive only in gravitational law. Here you can have attraction as well as repulsion. Okay, so we know that like charges repel and like charges attract. Both these repulsion as well as attraction happen with a force that vary with 1 by r square. Okay, and r is the separation between two charges. Okay, so now force is very peculiar quantity. So you can't just say that I applied 10 newtons of force. Newton becomes the measure of force in SI unit. I can't say, oh, I applied 10 newton of force. The question that immediately someone asks, suppose if I am having a mass over here, okay, and I am applying a force on it in this direction, 10 newtons. Okay, so I can't just say that I applied 10 newtons. The question that immediately someone asks is, where did you apply the force? Okay, along which line did you apply the force on this mass? Why that is there? This is very simple. If I can take this object and if I apply force from top, right, I would not be able to move this object. Assume that the object is slightly rigidd on the support. So if I am applying force here 10 newton, I would not able to move the object. On the other hand, if I apply 10 newton here in this direction, 10 newton, I would able to move the object in this direction. So clearly the direction along which force is acting is very important. And the direction which Coulomb's law found out was the force act along a line that join two charges. Okay, so you have two charges over here. Drawn on a line. You draw a line. The force, if you assume that the both of them have same sign, this is also positive, this is also positive. So these are positive charge, this is also positive charge. Then this charge as a source charge, if I am considering this as Q1 as a source charge, will push the positive charge, okay, that is test charge, along that line which is joining them. So you can push it away. If it was electron, it will get attracted in along same line. So if it was negatively charged particle, it would be attracted along the same line as the source charge. So Coulomb's law actually is of two sub-laws, in the sense the magnitude of forces varies with 1 by r square. That is the first part of the statement, and second part is that the force acts along the line that join the two charges. Okay, so if you have leave out the term 1 by 4 in this term, if you leave out 1 by 4 pi, 4 is number, pi is number, there is another unfamiliar constant sitting over here in this term, that is epsilon naught. So this is this unfamiliar constant epsilon naught. What is this epsilon naught? Okay, so this is the SI. This is in SI unit 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12 Faraday per meter. Faraday, if you remember, is in the way in which you define capacitance. Okay, you measure capacitance. Okay, so you might suspect that epsilon naught is something that to do with capacitance, and you will be right. This is known as permittivity of vacuum. This is permittivity of vacuum. Now instead of vacuum, you can take two charges and put them in with a material. Okay, that material is called as dielectric material. Then we need to replace this epsilon naught with ER, epsilon naught R. We will replace epsilon naught with epsilon naught R. Okay, epsilon naught R represents the ratio of force in vacuum, that is two charges are placed in vacuum. What is the force between two charges placed inside a medium? Okay, so what is the force between two? So the ratio of the two, the force in vacuum and the force in medium, when the two charges are placed in any medium, epsilon R can be calculated clearly, because this is the ratio of same dimension. There it will not have, this has no dimension. Epsilon naught will be equals to 1 in case of free space. Okay, and it will be greater than 1 for other mediums, any other material. Okay, so we will talking about what is dielectric medium is, and we will also look at epsilon naught R in the more detail as we go along. Okay, so finally we have the left hand side of the equation, which is F square F2. Okay, the subscript 2 was indicated that the force experienced by second charge because of presence of first charge. So force we have to set is a vector quantity, and it is something that is measured in newtons. Okay, so its symbol N is for unit newtons. This N will be capital over here because it's a name of scientist. To fully specific force, we have said that we required its magnitude, we required direction along which it acts. So these quantity which requires both magnitude, these quantities which require both magnitude and direction are specified as vector. You might be familiar with other form of vector such as acceleration or velocity. Okay, so how we understand these vector? There is mathematical tool to analyze and understand vector is called vector analysis. Okay, so because we talk of vector analysis, we will also need to know how to represent these vector numerically, and that is the subject of coordinate system. So we will study in further slides about vector analysis also. Okay. Now this is again a vector quantity or represent a unit vector AR whose magnitude is 1 along the line between Q1 and Q2. Its magnitude is 1 along the line from Q1 to Q2. If you want to specify a unit vector along the line that join Q2 and Q1, that is vector that originated from Q2 and back to Q1. Means suppose if you are having Q1 and Q2, you are considering force on Q2 by Q1. Okay, then it you are giving with AR. Now if you specify unit vector along the line that join Q2 and Q1, that is the vector originated from Q2 back to Q1, the unit vector will be minus AR. Okay, so it will simply be negative of AR. This is the part is hopefully very familiar to you. Okay, so vector along the line from Q2 to Q1 is minus AR, and vector along the line from Q1 to Q2 is AR. Along the line from Q1 to Q2 is your AR, and from Q2 to Q1 is minus AR. So far we have talked about vector in general terms. Okay, so now we now quantify vector with number using coordinate system, or we will quantify vector using vector analysis in our coming lectures. Okay, thank you for this lecture.